Going live. There is live. Hi, everybody. This is Tracy Baker here. It's 2 o'clock in New Mexico, 4 o'clock on the Eastern time. So it's time for Healthy You. What's your path? Today we have a fantastic show, and we have been anxiously awaiting the conversation with Wayne and a world for change. Haven't we heard that enough to actually ready to get in and get our hands dirty, which is exactly what he's doing. And we were talking in the green room. I told him that I popped on Mia and Christine's show saying thank you for introducing me to him, and found out that Kristen, my wingman down in the panel, met him on your show too. So we all voted, and we don't think you should stop the show because we have all met so many wonderful people. And that's my plug back to you guys. I hope you're out in the audience. And now we are going to listen to Wayne's path of sustainability and gardening and all the wonderful things he does. So take it away, Wayne. Tell us what's going on.
Hey, Tracy. Hi. Thanks for having me on the show. I've really been looking forward to this. I mean, you and I have spent a lot of time back and forth and in preparation, but I think more in preparation for what we have in the future. I'm excited to talk about that towards the end of the show. But first of all, thanks for having me on here, Tracy. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, babe.
Yeah. So where do we want to start? We want to start with kind of how I got started. Just
how'd you start? I mean, where were you at before?
Yeah.
What was the catalyst?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, I grew up in central Indiana, and I've given this part of my story, I think, on Christine and Mia's show. But the fact that I grew up in central Indiana, I really was inundated with the farming lifestyle and the growing your own food, and my mom always put up plenty of food for us through the winter. And I didn't have any sisters, so we all learned how to can food and how to make tomato juice, and you name it. We learned that stuff, but I lost it because I got away from where I grew up. I wanted to go to the big city and live the other lifestyle, if you will. And throughout that process, I realized that I just didn't feel connected with my roots, I guess, if you will. I don't know if that's the right way to word it. And the reason why I say that is because every time I came up against somebody just in day-to-day life, maybe at a Walmart or at the grocery store, I realized that most, generally, the people in America aren't accustomed to thinking like I was taught to think, growing up. And as I continued to notice that and grow, I ended up moving down to South Carolina, the North Carolina area, and I started to pay attention to what was going on around me. And really, this is really the growth part of me. When I started to realize that that things in our world are not what many people think they are. And so, for example, politics it's very unstable. You and I know this, but a lot of people don't. But politics is extremely unstable. Our monetary system is not healthy with fractional reserve lending and the Federal Reserve and the way that it's set up. There's no way we're ever going to be able to pay back in the American economy anyway. No way we'll ever be able to pay back all of that debt that's piled up because there's simply not enough cash in circulation to do it. And through that research, which I was kicked off kind of through the 2012 elections to start to look at that research and start to understand it and listen to people that were thinking outside the modern media box, I realized that there was no way that I was living my life in any way at all to where I could be able to I guess, pitch in and pull through if the government was to collapse and if our monetary system was to collapse. And I started thinking about it with, well, the what if question in my mindset. And so that what if question is what made me to really start to dive in and do research. And my what if question went from, it's no longer a what if, but it's a when. And when will things as we know them today change? And will it happen quickly? Is this a revolution that's going to be a forced revolution? Is it going to be something that we as citizens are able to bring forward in a peaceful and in a logical sort of way? Are we going to start to work together unified as a human race, more unified than what we have in the past? So all of these questions started to go through my head. And
did you as you started thinking about when I think of what you just described, and when I ask my what if questions, and yes, I came to the same conclusion that it's when. It's going to be when. It's going to be within our lifetime.
Yeah.
Definitely those parents, it's going to be within their children's lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So did you take some of the values, the ranching, farming values that your parents taught you, and now you're getting able to take those, you know, old school, everybody talks about it, old school values, and apply them to this growth spurt of yours, this awareness, and what you're thinking at this point right now, you know, at this stage in your story?
Yeah, I would say very little of them, and I know that sounds a little bit odd, maybe not what you were expecting me to answer. I think that what I was taught about gardening was great, but I never learned it. You know, you can kind of understand a general topic, but you can never just learn all the little bits and pieces of something until you do it several times. And I lost everything that I knew. I lost because I didn't exercise it, and exercise it at all. And I knew starting about a year and a half ago that if I was going to be prepared to deal with, or be ready to just take care of myself and my family first, the first thing was going to be I would need some type of food production to be able to handle feeding the family, and that's the most important thing, food and water. And so that was the first step, and I decided to start growing a garden. And at the time, I was still with my now ex-girlfriend, but her and I were together. We were living in a small subdivision out in the country, but still a subdivision. And we had a backyard that I was able to do, you know, some gardening and start to learn the concept of what it was going to be like to garden here down in the South. And another reason why I say I couldn't take some of those concepts or that knowledge that I learned when I was growing up is because gardening down here is entirely different than gardening is up in central Indiana, where you've got a black topsoil that's just native to the ground. You know, we don't have that down here. So it's been a tough learning process, but thankful to YouTube, there's been lots of support as well. So that's a little bit about how my past has brought me to here.
So where are you at now? You've got all this knowledge. Your awareness is opening up. Are you growing some of your own food now? I know I've seen.
Yeah, you cut out on me there.
Edible. So where are you at right now? Where's the middle of the story?
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm doing now is I still don't have a large piece of property out in the country that I can develop, and so I'm in a transition point now to find something like that, or a group of people who are looking to build a community, if you will, that can go off grid, and then we can utilize a community. That community approach to teach other people the value of an off-grid community, and then help to expand that concept into the other communities around us. For example, maybe start into a small town then at that point, and start to show a small town how they can cohesively work together, modeling it after more of that community lifestyle. So now that's not to
Have you
say,
heard about the you have those gated communities that have a golf course in them, and I'm not gonna say my water use thing about golf right now because I don't want to upset a whole bunch of golfers out there. But my thought for better perhaps use of all of that water is to plant food. And somebody put across my path a couple of weeks ago that there are now these gated communities that are opening up around food gardens as opposed to golfing communities and these sustainable communities. Have you looked into that? I don't know much about it, but that
yeah,
sounds like what you described.
yeah. I have looked into some of them, but I think the about 3 or 4 that I've looked at were a couple of the first generation style of communities, and they're still feeling it out. There's a really good one up in Oregon. I think it's in Portland or near Portland, and I can't tell you the name of it, but they took an old, it's in the city, and they took an old hotel or set of condos, large building, and converted it into a multifamily style unit that's focused on sustainability. And they all have their jobs. They all get to do certain parts of the gardening and the laundry and you name it. It's quite interesting how they have it set up, and it's in no way barbaric. It's not something that somebody living in the inner city today would look at and think, man, I can't do that, you know. So that's really what I would like to see is a future type of a community that's built that's not so far-fetched that we can't wrap our minds around it in our current state of our knowledge as human beings, but rather,
Let me let
yeah,
me ask you a little bit about that far-fetchedness.
yeah,
When I first met you on Christina Mia's show, when I first met you, I immediately had this feeling that you are one of the perfect faces for the sustainable movement.
hmm
I live in Taos, New Mexico. I live off the grid. People hear that about me. I go visit my sister in Dallas, and her son introduces me as his crazy Aunt Tracy with no power. And I I think the misconception out there is that you have to be some sort of hippy dippy if you're going to try and live sustainable, that the solar movement is just a bunch of crackpots, weirdos, tree huggers out there. Um, Address that for a minute, because it's I think it's the bridge that's crossing from mainstream to the fringe that we need to try, we as proponents of sustainability need to try to bridge a little bit. I'd like to hear your views.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. It's interesting because well, yeah, when we were let me go back. When I was growing up, uh, I grew up in a very conservative family, and they just didn't quite understand or wasn't able to wrap their mind around all of the other cultures that were around them. So when we would go on vacations, we drove to California a couple of years, and we took 3-week vacations and camped and met all kinds of people. And throughout that process, um, as a child, I learned what San Francisco was like, and I also learned what a pothead community was like, if you will, one of those types that you just described. And what's unique about it is most of them have the right idea with where we need to go and why we need to go there. But some of the challenges that you run across is the cultural differences between somebody living, say, in inner city Chicago or New York City in the suburbs, if you will, and what we know can be sustainable, and they have a hard time wrapping their mind around that type of a lifestyle. And so that's where I decided, that's where I think I want to fill a niche, and to be able to show the mainstream mainstream people here in America and around the world that we can start to make sustainable choices, and that lifestyles will need to change. It's not going to always just be as simple as unplugging your phone chargers and replacing everything with LED light bulbs and putting a couple solar panels on your roof. I mean, the house itself was not built sustainably. So, yes, it's a step in the right direction, but we need to start to think a little bit more outside of the box that we're living in and realize that if all we do is take in content from the popular social media sites and popular media outlets or networks like CNN, Fox, MSNBC, and you name it, we're only going to be taught what they want us to hear. And it's our choice to question. I mean, as human beings, we need to question what's going on around us. And it doesn't mean that you and I are going to necessarily agree on everything, but we need to at least have the thought process that says, you know what, there might be something bigger out here that I'm missing, so let me go and investigate. That's all it takes. So,
let's
good.
wow. Okay, I just got a ping from Kristen. There might be. Is there a message from the outside watching audience? It says
Well,
we can shout out for a few
there's a lot of
fans we've got out there watching. I know I saw Wayne Dix. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, it looks like Blake Kirby is in the house, and Nazim, he's here. I talked to him this morning, by the way. It was about, well, or no, was it this morning? Yeah, last night. It was his morning. I'm so glad.
Blake's saying that you look really good.
Thanks, Blake. Appreciate it, buddy.
Cheryl's saying about farm kids think the big city will be awesome until they get there and they miss the smell of the wet dirt and cow poop. So that's quite interesting from Cheryl. And there's a really great Nazim who says, Tracy Baker, this is awesome, so true. This can be done without the hippy-dippy factor. But since it is a variation of the current system in the world, it can always be frowned upon until the shit hits the fan. So, yeah. And Jessica Maynard also says, I love the sustainability talk.
Yay. Well, we went straight from shit hitting the fan to cow poop, which would be a fantastic segue into composting. But I love all you guys watching. This is what's going to change the world, is the conversation, is the ability to get people talking to where they're inspired enough to take action. Yeah. And we've had these talks in all the communities going through, and how big business and agribusiness, and I'll use Laney's call to charge of hashtag hell no to Monsanto, and all of the things that are going on out there that we are just numb because we listen to mainstream media and we think that is what's real because it's what we're told, and until we hop on our bandwagons and just grow a tomato, unplugging your phones and all of the things.
Yeah.
With that, what I really wanted you to talk about today is what you're about to do. The last 2 weeks of June are going to be so exciting for me because I get to watch you, but tell us what you're about to do, because it's perfect from going from your mainstream thing to a real submersive situation in a community that's doing what you want to do. So tell us about what you're getting ready to do, Wayne.
Yep, sure. Before I go and tell you that, I'd just like to give Blake a little bit more of a shout out. He's a really good friend of mine, and he runs a YouTube channel. He does gardening, and he has a little micro farm down in Texas. They live out in the country, and I would highly recommend that if any of the viewers want to see how a small micro farm can work in a family setting and utilizing your kids and getting them involved, Blake is a great person to showcase that very well. So thanks, Blake, for that, and highly recommend anybody checking out his channel.
Maybe we can, if you have them, maybe we can put his links in the show too, and
Yes.
you know, in the comment streams and all of that, and get some shout out for somebody who's getting their kids dirty and out there growing their own food. Fantastic.
Yep.
I haven't met him, so nice to meet you, Blake, and we'll hook up later.
Yeah, absolutely. So where we're heading now is I'm very excited about this, and I didn't fill in a little piece that I'm going to fill in right now, and that is the fact that modern America and people who are living inside this box, they have such a hard time thinking outside of the box because everybody else that's talking about it is thinking so drastic, like what you mentioned, the type of communities that you mentioned. And so I thought, well, I'm going to start a World for Change TV, and that's how a World for Change TV was born, and the worldforchange.com and everything I'm doing with that movement. And it was simply to connect the far left and the far right of the picture and bring it right into the middle and say, here's the middle ground that we can all meet and we can all talk about and we can all learn from each one of our sides and our differences, and we can make an educated decision, you know, moving forward. We can make an educated decision for our own lives based on that knowledge. And so in the future, we'd like to bring on additional guests that can speak to those areas of life and apply it to sustainability and how it affects us on a planetary scale, but also just you and I. And so to get to that point, we have decided to pair together or do a little joint venture type of a 2-week set of live sustainability classes that are all going to be focused on things like how to build a cob house, you know, how to mix cob mortar, how to suture yourself if you need to do your own suturing. We're going to have a class and don't think it couldn't happen now, Tracy. But
I'll tell you my fish story. Go ahead.
But we're going to do Greenhouse 1.1 through 1.4, so 4 classes, 1-hour classes on how to grow food in a greenhouse, how to clone plants, how to propagate them by rooting and using rooting hormones, how to lay out greenhouse, how to think about pests and how to organically grow in a greenhouse. Let's see, what else are we going to be talking about? Dutch bucket hydroponics system. Go ahead. I can't hear you. Your mic is out for some reason.
Yeah, it just started raining, so I don't know what's going to happen to me for the last few minutes. But
okay. So
Kristen wants to know if you're going to talk about worm farming.
You know what? When we're down there in June, we're not going to be talking about worm farming. That's something that we are not going to cover in a class. However, if the audience would like me to cover a worm farming class of some kind, I will put one together and we'll do it after we get back from our June trip down in Alabama. So but let's talk just a little bit more about Alabama. The Go for Green Living YouTube channel, and I'll put a link to the YouTube channel in the comment section below. But they are building, it's about 5 families now, but a sustainable community. They're building mainly sustainable structures with either reclaimed material or sod and native material, and the goal of the whole month in June, but the 2 weeks when we're down there, is going to be to focus on teaching other people how to do all these things that they need if, pardon my French, but if shit was to hit the fan, you know, at some point down the road. You said it first, so I can say it. But that's really the goal of this trip in June, is to be able to help to connect the dots and show how people in a modern world today can live in a sustainable community that's off the grid or heading towards being off the grid by the end of December, and still I don't know, I guess, be connected with the world around them at the same time and give back to the world that that they're living in. So,
Do you do you think the knowledge that you're going to learn these last 2 weeks in June, and then share to the world, do you think what is your hope for it? Do you think it's going to help people just open their eyes to what's possible, or actually get them their call to action?
yeah, well, I think both, because I've started to build relationships on YouTube and Google Plus, and we've run into each other, and I have a few people that follow me, and I think that if they can see that I can be a normal guy, I can work with technology and a computer, I can have a daytime job if I want, and be a part of this system, but at the same time support sustainability and move my life towards an environment that's not a negative to our world and to our planet, then that's why I said I think you're right. I might be that person that can help bridge that gap. So that's going to be helping people that I communicate with on a daily basis to open their eyes. But what's going to happen a year from now with that video that's posted online of the class? That class is going to be available now forever as long as YouTube's up, and we can share that for people who are who people are looking for that kind of knowledge. And I think that's going to be more than just an awakening. It's going to be more for those people, an actual class that will help them learn to a point where they may not be able to travel out of state. For example, I can't come to Taos, New Mexico right now and spend 6 weeks and learn how to build an Earthship, but there's going to be a lot of people like that. So if I can help others be able to learn online in some way without having to travel because of funds and political scenarios, etc., then maybe that's a goal that can happen, and the show and the World for Change TV can continue to grow and bring on more topics.
Do you I was talking in a couple of other HOAs over the last couple of days, and do you think it's going to also take a mindset change of you can actually learn something from YouTube? I met a woman last night. She's going to be on the show sometime in July. We're finalizing dates. Might be the second week. And her and her children built their house videos. I mean, literally, how do you frame a house on YouTube? Yeah. And then they went and did it and built their house. How to plan the electricity. And it's just the education that this platform provides is a total green platform, because people don't have to travel and change their lives and go someplace.
Yep.
So now we can share what you're learning and teaching at the same time and share it with the world. It's fantastic. It's just fantastic, Wayne. I'm over the moon, really.
Yeah, well, when I got started back into gardening, the whole reason I started my private YouTube channel was because I started growing cucumbers and they didn't grow, and so I went out and shot a video and I posted it to YouTube, and then I posted that link to a bunch of different forums for gardening, and people started to comment and help me learn how to get through that rough patch of my gardening, and that happened several times throughout last year. And now that I've learned that, I've continued to watch YouTube for knowledge to help me in areas of gardening that I personally don't garden in yet, but would like to get into. It's doing the same thing that you just mentioned with building the house. And now I'm seeing that happen with, I've helped Kirsten a little bit. I've helped Joanne Woolley, Tina Willis. Some of these are just coming off the top of my head here, but quite a few people start to get interested in gardening and start to think outside the box just a little bit. And that's my goal, and my passion is to just make it as massive as an impact as I can on the world, and leave a legacy of positive ripples. I use the ripple analogy. You know, I think we all have, when you drop a rock into a pool of water, it leaves a ripple, and you get a choice to either, you get a choice to either be a negative ripple or a positive ripple, and I hope to be that positive ripple and a force for change, you know, moving forward, and hopefully I can inspire others to do that.
And speaking of inspiring others and rippling out, the comment stream is going cuckoo, so we're going to let Kristen pull in some of these comments.
All right.
There's a really great comment here from Andy Bryan who says, when more people become aware of others will join us, and soon enough of us become a norm for everyone. At least that's what I would love to see in the next years. And then he says it's great to see Wayne here, and thanks Tracy for such a great show. And also Wayne Nix has got a really good comment saying, I'll just pin it up, saying since we're all having a hard time monetizing, we might all want to learn Wayne's classes just so we can survive. So, you know, that's a really good comment.
Yes, Wayne, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that Wayne has really inspired me to start growing my own food, and it is really very simple, and the support is out there for people. You know, whenever I'm having a problem and post about it, lots of people come along and say, well, have you tried this? Why don't you do this? And you know, it's a really supportive environment for people.
Right, and I think, you know, you can see how that YouTube community and the YouTubers that I've been able to ping in that I knew could answer questions for you that I didn't have an answer for, they all pitch in, and that's another reason why I think a sustainability classes, or classes that are focused on the topics that we're addressing, it's going to be so valuable in the future, because if there is a question, I can ping in other people who I know are experts in that area. So anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Well, that's a perfect place to leave it at, because it really is where, you know, what changes the world, a small band of people that are like-minded, that are going to spread their message and spread their message and spread their message, and that's all what we're all trying to do here. So before we get into your call to action, I warned you that I was going to tease you about how you spent your weekend. Mr. Sustainability, how did you spend your Memorial Day weekend?
Listen, I had a great time. I spent the most unsustainable weekend you could possibly spend. It's almost embarrassing to talk about, and I just about didn't tell anybody that I went, but I went to a NASCAR race, the Coca-Cola 600 here in Charlotte, first NASCAR race that I've ever been to. But you know, one of my friends here in Charlotte, his name's Joe Kelly, and he commented on that post, and it's interesting. I've been thinking about it. It frustrated me to watch those cars, as much fun as it was, to watch those cars going around the track, and then to walk up in the pits and see hundreds of cans of fuel sitting there, when, for me, I mean, I've done a lot of research, and I could probably darn near close to put together my own electric car right now. And if I wanted to go and do that, and matter of fact, I might at some point, but why not take, you know, my frustration for the direction that we're heading with the NASCAR and common racing, and really get behind solar powered and battery powered race vehicles, and start to think outside the box there as well. But again, it goes back to being able to change the old timers, you know, that are in it for the sound of the engine. So
very good. And that wasn't too hard, was it?
No, yeah.
At least I know you were you know, none of us are perfect. We all live, you know, a quiet desperation, or whatever the thing is, and, you know, I eat just as much pizza as I do salad over the course of a month, and I drink just as much wine as I do, well, not as I do water over the course of the month. But, you know, we all have to have our guilty little pleasures, or what would the world be living in, but at least you understood that is not a sustainable sport.
Yeah, there's nothing sustainable about it. It's frustrating, you know, and as much as it was, you know, good to just enjoy the weekend, it really did give me some motivation to start thinking about, you know, 10 and 15 years from now, and maybe the ability to support something like that, and potentially use that to drive more knowledge to the general public about sustainability. So.
Okay. Well, we knew we'd go over because we always do when we talk. This will actually be the shortest conversation we've ever had. And we are about 6 minutes over. So what is your call to action? Yes, we all can't leave the city and move into a community that aren't even designed yet or built yet or even conceptualized, really. But what can we do? What is that next step beyond unplugging their phone chargers and buying, you know, the squirrely lights, which I have? But what is the next call to action for everybody? Is it get some knowledge or plant a tomato, or what do you think we should do?
I would say this: if you're already bought into the idea that that things are going to change, and you already know that it's going to change, and you need to start planning ahead, then start learning how to grow your own food and grow, store your own food, and purify and store your own water. That would be my first step, bar none. But if you're not already bought into it, my thought process would be to tell you to just ask why. Question everything that you see and ask why. So that's my thought process. You got to tell me.
That is an amazing call to action, is to question everything, and you know, have the courage to explore your questions. And if you guys don't see me, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. We're going to get all of Wayne's links in there. We're going to get oh gosh, I lost his name. What is your friend's name? Kirby.
Oh yeah, Blake Kirby. Yep.
Blake. We're going to get Blake's links in there, and everybody just mark your calendars for the last 2 weeks of June and save yourself some HOA time in your schedule to either wake up early and watch some of A World for Change shows live, or get in there and you know, watch them on the replay so everybody gets that knowledge and we can share that knowledge. And hopefully, I opened up the comment tracker right there at the end, and comment flew by that says, don't be bashing on my rednecks of NASCAR, Tracy Baker, or I'm going to hunt you down. So a little nervous about the next couple of days. I will, I don't think rednecks and NASCAR go together necessarily. I think NASCAR and sustainability don't go together. So I wasn't necessarily trashing your redneck, Cheryl. I am a redneck. I live on a ranch. I have more cow poo on my shoes than the average schmo. So love you, and try not to hunt me down because I know you carry a big bat. And with that, happy Wednesday, happy healthy you. We'll keep the conversation going, and we will see Wayne and spend a lot of time with him the last 2 weeks of June. So go find a world for change and be the change you want to see in the world. Isn't that hokey? But we actually have to start living it now that we know how to say it so often.
That's right.
And with that, I'll say bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for your great